May I share with you my virtual cookies, my virtual ice cream, my virtual whatever it is that makes sounds like that? And we are celebrating. Jess, this is big. Is there anything that we can do with the effects here? I know that you can do some things on here. It's just not happening. Uh, this is our 200th episode. I mean, Church Answers podcast just started, and this is episode number 200.
Hey, I think you were talking about the thumbs up type things. We can do that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'll give 200 episodes a thumbs up.
So you are on episode number 200, Jess. It's it's
I'm
not
honored to be here.
wow. That has gone so quickly. Now I know that we do 3 a week, so by the time you've done a year, you've done over 150. So it can go pretty quickly, but it's really, really gone fast. Hey, thank you, Cheney and Associates, for being the accounting firm for the church. Thank you for being the sponsor. Thank you for paying the bills that allow us to get this ministry and this message free to those who are watching it on YouTube, to those who are listening on your favorite podcasting app. Hey, you YouTubers, thanks for subscribing to us. Just go down to that button and subscribe right now, and you'll be getting a regular feed of this. And I'll send out a message to other people that this is available. For those of you on the podcast that podcasting app, give us a good rating and a good review. Same thing will happen. All right, maybe people are tired of COVID, Jess, but a lot of data is coming in that the COVID reset is over. Now, the indication for this has come primarily from the mental health experts.
Okay.
And the mental health experts, and we have one article. It's called "The Mental Health Toll of COVID-19 Appears to Be Fading." It's in the show notes, so you can look at that. That's one of many. But what has happened is there's no longer an increase in the number of cases of mental health challenges as measured by those who come in for help. And the sources are in that article. I'm not going to try to bore people with that, but it's now stabilized. But just a word to all of those who are listening: stabilized means it's a new normal that's not that good for mental
Right.
health.
Right.
So the number of people coming, it's still great. It's just not increasing. So we're at a new normal. Now you were asking this question, and I didn't give you a good answer because you asked it 3 times. What is the practical implications for the church? And I just say, well, there's a new baseline. The same principle applies that whatever your decline is now, the COVID effect is over.
Hmm.
Should be over. And you say, well, so what? What does that mean? That's what you said when you kept on asking the question. It's basically a planning. It's basically a strategic issue. Uh, if you know you're not fighting uphill against one thing, you can fight and you can battle and you can do spiritual warfare and other things. Is that
It's
practical enough for you?
it's a mindset shift is what you're saying. Like obviously the implications of 2020 as a whole. We saw the massive spike in anxiety and depression. You're right. It is lower than what it used to be, but it's still higher than it was before 2020. So the problem is, it's challenge is still there. But at least what I hear you saying now is that as a pastor, I can kind of go, this is the new reality.
It
This
is.
this this is where we can begin to function. We can't just not stop looking back, stop trying to figure out what happened, and understand regardless of what happened, this is our reality. We can begin to move forward. And so there, in our conversation, there's some key things that I hear you saying that have led to this, that we're
Yes.
we're able to kind of say, all right, why is that true?
And so in church decline, what we know now, churches are still declining. You're still having more churches declining than growing, but the rate of church decline is not as steep because the COVID effect is now kind of settled out. What is the COVID effect? Jess, I was talking to your mother, my wife, about someone we hadn't seen at our church, where you're a pastor, in some time, and I said, that was one person that stopped coming during COVID and never came back. And every church has so many of those people. I
Mm.
don't know if they got out of the habit or they just were fearful of coming back to a gathered place. I don't know. But whatever happened, they're not back in that routine. Every church has a lot of those.
Right.
So that reason is going away. Your
Yeah.
church may still be declining, but it's not because of COVID effect anymore.
Right. And COVID made it a sharper decline, and now it's just not as pronounced. It's not as steep of a decline. That makes sense. That's good. Yeah, that's a good indicator.
So if we say that you're the new normal as a pastor, what does that mean for you? That okay, wherever we are right now is probably your base with a non-COVID effect to start moving forward. What that moving forward means, grow or decline. It's a lot of other factors, but what does it mean to adjust to a new normal as a pastor?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there you could put some very specific things on it. There used to be the 80% rule. That feels like it's now a 60-70% rule. The 80% rule, if if you walk into a church facility, 80%, it feels like if there's 80% people, it feels 100% full. People kind of, there's new norm culturally. Like the whole 6 foot thing, it created this new norm. It's like, well, you got to live in that now. For you introverts, you love that 6 foot rule and you still try and abide by it. But it's things like that have become, that we introduced to, have become more normative.
I
Um,
watched it this past Sunday, by the way.
what's that? You
I,
watched how
I
far
heard.
away you were from people?
No, I watched people come in. I went to both services last Sunday.
Right.
So I went to the 9 o'clock and the 10:30 service, and so I'm standing in the back at the 10:30 service. I'd already heard you preach once, but your mother said I had to listen to you again. So uh,
Must have been something you really need to hear.
she always thinks that. I'm in the back and I'm looking real carefully because I want to make sure I find her and not somebody else and accidentally sit by someone I shouldn't sit by.
Thank you.
That's another story and another episode. But I'm watching people come in, and that service was really full, and they were bringing in other chairs,
Hmm.
just because there weren't enough chairs. I watched people go by rows, and if they looked at a row and there weren't 2 or 3 seats available, even if it's just one person, they kept on looking because they're used to the space. They
Hmm.
didn't find it, but they're used to the space.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you're talking about.
And that's just one example. I mean, there's benefits to this. Last night I did a Zoom call for the church in different ways. Like there's things that brought into our culture from COVID that we can introduce from, positive, negative, that we can begin to utilize. But understanding too that it's time to shift forward and understand that these things are just here to stay now. And how do we begin to utilize them to reach people?
One of the factors that is not positive is the level of urgency is not as great. There was a
Mm,
period coming in COVID and off of COVID where you could it was an opportunity. Now we were telling people at Church Answers, if you have something you want to change, you better change it now because this window
right.
is open for
Right.
just a season, and that urgency is now gone. So at least COVID related urgency is gone. So there's not the receptivity to make the changes that you need to make. There's not a prescription for that. Just to let you know, if it feels like you're pushing uphill a little bit more than you were a few months ago, you are.
Yeah.
Change is not as easy.
Yeah. That ability to enact change has become more difficult as well, because people are getting back into these new normals, these new routines, and
Hmm.
so we're not too far removed from it. So there's still opportunities, but yeah, that makes sense. That the decline is less. The idea of there's a new normal that's set in. The level of urgency has decreased, but then that also creates the opportunity to create urgency. And so it's
Hmm.
all that mindset of, are you looking back? Are you looking at your present? Are you looking forward? What are you doing as a church leader?
Excellent points. Excellent point. And we've already mentioned that anxiety and depression are down from their peak, but they're up from where it was before COVID. It's still it's to say it's an epidemic, that may not be the right sociological medical term to use, but it's not as epidemic as it once was, but it's still a serious problem that churches will continue to deal with. So
Yeah.
you see it, you know it's there.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, coming out of COVID, this was something that churches become more aware of the mental health challenges that exist and the reality of them and how the church can respond to them. We got a taste of how to begin to do that, but also we're seeing that the need's still there. There's this idea of anxiety continues to grow. I
It's
I
there.
I I think it's an opportunity for the church. It's a whole nother topic for another day. So I'll stop there.
It's a book. It's a book that I'm writing too, but we'll talk about that more at another time too. Thanks for being a part of the Church Answers podcast. On behalf of Jess Rayner, I'm Thom Rayner, and to Steve Cheney and Cheney and Associates, thank you for being here. Hey, we got one more episode. We upload. I say download every time, three at a time, three at a time. This next one is on the 2024 election. That may mean that you don't even want to come to this because so many people are just sick of politics. But we want to talk about maybe why the 2024 election won't be as volatile as the 2020 election. So, yeah, we still got the same two primary candidates. We've got a stronger third party. There's so many things there, but we're going to talk about the 2024 election compared to the 2020 from the perspective of the church. Thank you, as always, for being a part of the Church Answers podcast. We'll see you in the next episode.